Somebody hit her mother in the face.
J-Lo, who has famously declared, "Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got, I'm still Jenny from the block," has weathered tales of her alleged snobbery for years. In just one instance reported by the Daily Star, when contractors were hired for a job that could take up to a year on J-Lo's old house, those contractors were reportedly informed that they were not to communicate directly with the international star. A source told the tabloids that she has made it clear that if any of the contractors, drivers, or domestic help make eye contact or speak to her, she will not be impressed. J-Lo's supposed superficial superstar antics apparently extend to service workers who just aren't directly in her employ, but who have the unfortunate one-time experience of being snubbed by her. A source said she doesn't speak to salespeople, she doesn't speak to restaurant people, she doesn't speak to hotel staff, flight attendants, she only talks through her assistants. A United Airlines flight attendant backed up this claim, sharing a similar experience with the singer. "I just said, 'What can I get you to drink?' But Jennifer refused to even acknowledge them." They added that she turned her head away and told her personal assistant, "Please tell him I'd like a Diet Coke and lime." She wouldn't even look at me. Now, according to the sources I found, Jennifer has an extreme thing about people looking at her, other than when she's on stage. Then everybody's gotta look at her. Otherwise, if small, unimportant people look at her, and God forbid, open their little unimportant mouths to speak to her holiness, she does whatever she can to retaliate. If they're servers or anyone she can get fired, she gets them fired. In 2013, J-Lo's morals came into question when it was reported that she earned in the neighborhood of $10 million performing for shady dictators, at least according to news outlets. Also, apparently, the Human Rights Foundation and a lot of folks were very critical of J-Lo's decision to put on a private performance in Turkmenistan for the president at the time, whose government allegedly restricted free speech and imprisoned those who spoke against the nation's alleged corruption. J-Lo's then publicist Mark Young issued a response, however, and the statement made J-Lo's team appear really ill-informed. They said this was not a government-sponsored event or political in nature. The event was vetted by her reps. Had there been knowledge of human rights issues of any kind, Jennifer would not have attended. Well, that statement probably didn't go over well, considering how Human Rights Watch's Rachel Denber, Deputy Director for Europe and Central Asia Division, explained that J-Lo's team didn't have to dig deep for information that would have revealed the controversy surrounding the whole presidential leadership corruption stuff. It was something even J-Lo herself could have discovered. Denber literally said, "Just do a few Google clicks, look up the human rights record, it's right there, it's easy to find." Well, 2 months after the backlash, Young was fired from J-Lo's team. With the whole fiasco going boom in everybody's face, was it possible Young eventually took the fall for what appeared to be some blame shifting after the fact? I think so. Forbes credits makeup artist Scott Barnes with creating the signature technique that became Lopez's iconic glow, which in turn became the preferred look of the era in the early 2000s. The makeup artist has worked with J-Lo since the year 2000, whether it was serving as J-Lo's personal makeup artist for her role in 2019's Hustlers, or for the Super Bowl performance, or whatever it may be. And while their working relationship and friendship spans 2 decades, there was a time when Barnes apparently didn't have her love. Barnes spilled the beans during an interview on the Jeff Probst show after rumors circulated that Barnes and 2 others leaked plans of J-Lo and Anthony's secret marriage. J-Lo's team shunned him. He said, "Nobody would talk to me. It was like I had some sort of disease." When the truth came out that Barnes did not leak the news or even know about the wedding ahead of time, he received a phone call, presumably from J-Lo, whom Barnes claimed said the following: "It was like, hey, it was a big misunderstanding, we have a lot of stuff coming up and I really miss you, so let's just get back to work." And although Barnes was extremely diplomatic in his recounting of the temporary fallout, it's clear that he never received a direct apology, or even a real apology. What's even more interesting is that considering Barnes and Lopez quickly reconciled, he chose not to keep this story about her in-house. So I guess he's the one person she didn't have sign an NDA? Hakan Manoukian began chauffeuring J-Lo and her then-husband Mark Anthony around in 2005 before eventually being promoted to Lopez's staff full-time as her personal head of security and transportation in early 2011, at least according to TMZ. By September of that year, Manoukian was gone from J-Lo's staff, after which he filed a lawsuit for breach of contract and wrongful termination against J-Lo, her company, New Yorkin Productions, and manager Benny Medina. Manoukian claimed his agreement with J-Lo included a $72,000 yearly salary with additional production pay, potentially increasing his compensation to $200,000 per year. But according to tabloids, however, he claimed that he received no production pay or overtime whatsoever. CNN further reported that Manoukian's suit claimed that he dealt with intolerable labor conditions, such as working more than 40 hours a week and being prevented from taking proper meal periods, which forced him to resign. J-Lo filed a countersuit seeking a minimum of $20 million in damages, claiming the former driver was allegedly blackmailing her for $2.8 million as he threatened to expose private information he overheard when chauffeuring her. So the countersuit alleged that he became hostile and angry after J-Lo rejected his desire to lead and appoint members to organize a security team for a music video production. J-Lo's countersuit was dismissed in December of 2012, and the singer ended up settling the original lawsuit for undisclosed terms in February of 2013. Wish we knew the terms though. Gilly Ayer was a longtime assistant for J-Lo until 2013 when she reportedly left without informing J-Lo she'd been looking elsewhere for work. Quiet quitting. According to sources, Gilly went to work for Jermaine Dupri a week after he joined Mariah Carey's management team. Now, J-Lo and Mariah Carey have been publicly painted as rivals for quite some time, so Gilly jumping ship to Lopez's big nemesis camp seemed to sting a lot. We're talking like butter on a burn a lot. Reports surfaced that J-Lo's then boyfriend Casper Smart allegedly ruffled feathers with a lot of J-Lo's staff. Casper always insisted that all of Jennifer's staff call him Mr. Smart, and even demanded that Gilly get him drinks. At least that's what a source told online sources. So with Jenny from the block allegedly doing nothing to set him straight, that may have been the breaking point as to why Gilly left. Gilly had enough. She was over it. She'd been looking to leave for some time, and as soon as Mariah hired Jermaine, she quit. J-Lo was stunned. Now, Gilly may not have publicly trashed J-Lo, but is there anything colder than a personal assistant leaving a celeb staff on short notice to go work for their rival? So, how bad did this hurt the former fly girl? Well, it's unclear, but in 2015, Page Six revealed that J-Lo reportedly had a no Mariah clause in her contract with her manager Betty Medina, barring him from managing Mariah Carey at the same time as her. So, oop. According to at least several of J-Lo's former staff members, she's earned herself the nickname Paylo because she paid her staff a lot less than they can make elsewhere. We're talking like half of what they can make elsewhere. Now this rumor's been going around for years. We're talking like back in 2003, when Jennifer was first with Ben Affleck. They were out in Vegas, they were having a good time, they had a big win, and Ben was feeling generous. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna tip the dealer $2,000. But before the dealer could actually claim the reward, J-Lo was like, no, you get $200. So, why does J-Lo pay her staff so little? She's like, well, you know what? I had to work hard to get my money, so you have to work hard to get yours. Which, like, I'm sorry, that's embarrassing. If you had to work so hard to earn your money, wouldn't you want to make it easier for others because you know how hard it is? Come on, queen. An ex-private airport employee called J-Lo a nightmare person on Twitter before dishing out several stories about negative interactions with the superstar. Twitter user @MoiraWebb claimed she worked at a private airport on Long Island when J-Lo was in her relationship with Mark Anthony. They said, I have so many stories about her being a rude and nasty person. It's gross to say, but each time she fails at anything, it delights me. So, okay, that's like really intense hating. Surely J-Lo couldn't be that bad, right? Wrong. Come on, you've been here long enough today. So Webb told 5 stories about brutal interactions with J-Lo, and these range. We're talking like some were just kind of bizarre, some of them were just plain mean. But it definitely seems like, if you haven't figured it out already, J-Lo doesn't care about people if you're not her. The first story, she's got this standing catering order, even if she's only going like 20 minutes away, and that order needs to have a KFC bucket. So she was flying out in the morning before KFC opened, and her team freaked out that they didn't have the bucket. So this employee was demanded to go get some, was given some cash. They drove like a bat out of hell and begged KFC to open early, make one for her. They were excited it was J-Lo, they made one.
Starting off at number 10, we have Lena Dunham. So obviously Lena Dunham was incredibly busy on the set of her show Girls, as she was the creator, writer, director, producer, and she's the star of the show. And I can understand that when you're frazzled like that, you might not be able to schedule breaks to eat. But as a solution to that problem, Lena Dunham makes her assistants feed her. Like, she'll be on set with way too much in her hands, so while she's like reading a script or something, her assistant will be holding the food that Dunham is eating. In one photo of this taking place, Lena is getting fed a quesadilla by her assistant. And for me, that is just so gross on so many levels. And handheld food is definitely a no-go from me, especially with Corona now. Like, the thought of literally eating food that someone was just touching is absolutely revolting. And at number 9, Paris Hilton. Of course, Paris Hilton just had to be on this list. And even though she befriended one of her old assistants, Kim Kardashian, it didn't stop her from low-key bossing Kim around and even talking smack about her in her confessionals on her reality TV show. But one thing that Kim exposed about Paris is that for some really high-end purses, the ladies would walk around with them totally empty so that they wouldn't ruin the bag at all. But of course, someone has to hold her stuff. and that person would be none other than her assistant. And of course, there are some rare photos showing all the stuff that the assistants are carrying around, while Paris usually has like a purse and a small dog to hold. And at number 8, Mike Myers. Mike Myers is someone who I've talked about before, and apparently his funny personality is not at all what he's like in real life, and he's incredibly rude to practically everyone. So obviously that attitude would translate over to how he treats his assistants, and he not only treats his own assistant badly, but he also is a complete pain in the ass to the PAs on the late night shows that he is on. One incident was when he was on Conan O'Brien's show, and he was seen bossing around the staff of that show, yelling at them to get him seltzer, Twizzlers, and creamer, which is firstly just super entitled, but secondly, who even asked for like that combination of items? Like, who needs a seltzer and a creamer at the same time? And also the fact that he's bothering PAs who are incredibly busy even without Mike Myers harassing them makes the whole thing just even worse. And at number 7, Amber Heard. I didn't have Amber Heard in my last one, and a ton of you guys wanted to hear about her, so here it is. With the way that she treated her ex-husband Johnny Depp and her other past partners, it's a guarantee that she would be a nightmare to an assistant. And she is. Amber's former assistant Kate James exposed her in a legal deposition that was part of Johnny Depp's defamation lawsuit against her. According to the assistant, Amber would routinely, verbally, and mentally abuse her, usually while Amber was intoxicated with substances like MDMA, mushrooms, and wine, with Kate even saying that she would wake up on edge the morning after Amber's binges because it was common for her to get terrifying texts from Amber in the middle of the night while she was wasted, with Kate going on to say that her time working for Amber is a nightmare that she hopes she's one day able to recover from. And at number 6, Mel B. Apparently the former Spice Girl is a lot spicier than we ever would have thought, and her former assistant completely exposed her for being a shady person. Mel's former assistant was actually a former friend, which makes his treatment even more shocking. The former assistant, Gary Meditayan, filed a lawsuit against Mel after she apparently didn't pay him $200,000 while he worked as her hairstylist and personal assistant. And wow, that is a lot of money. Meditayan was also very close with Mel, but it was at the expense of his own personal life. And because he did literally everything for her, he had basically no life at all. And allegedly he couldn't see his friends or family. He also exposed some pretty dark stuff too, like how Mel at one point was drinking ridiculous amounts, and it caused her to be violent with her own kids. Gary said that at her lowest point, Mel would drink 3 bottles of wine a day and multiple tequila shots, which would make her delusional and paranoid. Halfway number 5, Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera definitely is not even close to the worst on this list, but her request might be the most uncomfortable. Apparently when Christina was married to her ex, Jordan Bratman, they were pretty adventurous in the bedroom, and they would role play a lot, with both of them dressing up in costumes. And I truly could not care less what you want to do with your spouse in your own bed, that is nobody's business. But it was the business of her assistant, who apparently was tasked with picking up all of the clothes and costumes off the floor. And I would definitely be using gloves or like a tong if I was forced to pick that up. Yikes, probably both. And at number 4, Khloe Kardashian. Khloe Kardashian had me really fooled. This whole time I thought she was the perfect housewife, with her house on keeping up always being perfectly clean, and with her pantry being essentially a work of art. But apparently that's all a lie. Even the coveted Oreo jar. And her assistant is really the person that makes that all possible. One of her assistants told Radar Online that Khloe didn't lift a finger, and one of the main jobs of her assistant is making sure that the house is spotless at all times, so it looks perfect on camera, even down to having the perfect number of cookies in her cookie jar. And even though this really isn't that insane of a request, I'm mostly just shocked because I really thought Khloe did it all herself. But Khloe definitely did have her diva moments, and allegedly if the food wasn't displayed the way that she wanted, Khloe would dump it upside down and make them do it all over again. And if that's true, that's next level. And at number 3, Ryan Gosling. Based on the characters that he plays, it would be easy to assume that Ryan Gosling is the perfect guy. He's always playing the charming and handsome guy next door that sweeps you off your feet. But when he isn't acting, he's apparently super strange. And although there's no horror stories of his assistants getting treated horribly, there are some stories that will just make you think twice about what he does behind closed doors. One random fact is that he likes getting waxed. Like, he likes the feeling of getting waxed. And as a person who has waxed my eyebrows for my whole life, I can tell you that hurts. So that is definitely very crazy. Also, one of Ryan Gosling's housekeepers famously claimed that he walks up the stairs on all 4s. Okay? And he also sleeps upside down in bed, allegedly, with his head actually at like the foot of the bed. So clearly, he might have some skeletons in his closet, because that's some weird stuff. Like, there's gotta be more. And at number 2, Selena Gomez. Selena is again another celebrity that really isn't that bad, but a former assistant exposed her for being quite the slob, which is a little hard for me to believe honestly because she always seems like so prim and proper, but I guess that is the Disney machine in action. But according to her assistant, she leaves her dishes lying around, and in the assistant's words, she quote, has a lack of respect for other places and can completely trash a hotel room in less than 24 hours. And the worst part for me is that she apparently leaves makeup stains all over her bed and sheets because she doesn't wash her makeup off. And like, how can you be a celebrity and not wash your face? Like, if the whole world is looking at you, that's even more of a reason to make sure you have a really good skincare routine, come on. Hopefully she's learned from then. She'll also leave food wrappers all over the place, she doesn't clean up spills, and she also leaves her undies lying around for her assistant to pick up. So she's either very busy or very messy. Maybe a bit of both. And in at number 1, Naomi Campbell. So I didn't know this before doing this video, but apparently Naomi Campbell is a nightmare on set. And there are tons of documented cases of her just being terrible. And that attitude also translated to her assistants, which she treated horribly. And the most famous incident of this terrible treatment was when she threw her phone at one of her assistants, Amanda Brack. And yikes, that is like on another level. Amanda spoke more about everything when she made an appearance on the Tyra Banks show, saying that Naomi attacked her at least 3 times, spat in her face, and even cut up her passport and threw it in a swimming pool. And like, why a person would ever do that is truly beyond me. Like, what? She also spilled the tea on the phone incident, saying that while Naomi was stressed about flights and luggage, she slammed the phone into her face. And Naomi's hairdresser intervened and basically saved Amanda. But that was not her only nightmare interaction with an assistant. Amy Castaldo also speaks of how she was subjected to horrible treatment, and she endured things like headbutting, biting, pulling her to the ground by her hair, and calling her degrading names.
Drake is a famous Canadian rap artist, and I've heard he's got a pretty stellar candy room in his mansion. Sounds pretty fun. Recently, Drake dropped a song called Search and Rescue, now available on Spotify. Halfway through the track, the music cuts out and a voice clip of Kim Kardashian and her mother Kris from an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians begins to play. The intention was to throw shade at Kanye West, whom Drake has had problems with in the past, but it only added fuel to the rumor fire surrounding his alleged affair with Kim during her marriage to Kanye. In the clip, Kim says, "I don't come this far just to not be happy. Remember that." On top of this, many fans have brought up Drake's lyrics from his song In My Feelings, claiming that Kiki is actually Kim herself. Hardcore internet sleuths sifted through his lyrics and discovered that if you take the directions that he's rapping about in the song and start at Drake's house in LA, it actually takes you directly to Kim's front gate. Coincidence? I think not. Number 9. Kendall and Bad Bunny. Not long ago, Kendall Jenner was dating a basketball player from the Phoenix Suns named Devin Booker. Devin and Kendall were together for over 2 years, first getting together in 2020. However, in 2022, the couple had a quiet breakup that left fans wondering what really happened to end what seemed to be such a strong relationship. Well, it turns out there may have been another man. Or a bunny, if you will. I'm just gonna show myself out, jeez. Bad Bunny is a popular rapper, singer, songwriter, and now actor, after briefly starring in last year's action comedy Bullet Train as the Wolf. In March of this year, Bunny seemingly dissed Kendall's ex, Booker, in his track Coco Chanel. He rapped, "The sun in Puerto Rico is hotter than in Phoenix." And a few weeks following the song's release, Kendall introduced Bunny to her horse, Arizona, in California. Oh, that's so cute, you named it Arizona. The couple are officially together. Let's see how long this one lasts. Number 8. Devin Booker and Kendall Jenner. Jenner and Booker were first spotted together on a double date with other people. At the time, Booker was dating Kylie's best friend, Jordan Woods, and Jenner was dating Ben Simmons. In February of 2019, it was revealed that Booker and Woods' relationship had fizzled out. But not long after the announcement, Woods was caught kissing Khloe Kardashian's boo, Tristan Thompson. Yeah, this is just gonna be very messy. Kardashian and Thompson split, and with that, Kylie's friendship with Woods was gone. But what that meant was that Kendall and Devin were free to do whatever they wanted. It was confirmed they were seeing each other after multiple sources caught them road tripping together over the summer of 2020. They were together for roughly 2 years before calling it quits in 2022, taking a break to figure out if their future together was actually meant to be. They got back together, but ultimately ended things on good terms in November of that same year. Number 7. Kylie Jenner and Timothee Chalamet. Chalamet. Timothee Chalamet is slowly building his acting repertoire in Hollywood, and so far it's going pretty well. He starred as the lead in Dune, and he was recently announced to be playing a young Willy Wonka in a TV series chronicling Wonka's rise to glory. It was also recently announced that he was seeing Kylie Jenner like every week. While the announcement of them being a couple is a little out of nowhere, the fact is that Kylie has been co-parenting her 2 kids with Travis Scott, and Travis did not appreciate the secrecy. He said that he felt blindsided by the announcement, but he respects her decision to move on romantically. This relationship isn't all that recent, however, it was reported that the two may have shared a private moment or two during her marriage to Scott. Neither party have confirmed nor denied the rumors, but just seeing these two in a picture together makes us think that there is no way this relationship is that fresh, right? Number 6. Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson was the youngest cast member on Saturday Night Live when he was hired at the age of 20. He was the youngest cast member of all time. In 2021, Kim Kardashian hosted an episode of the show and starred in a sketch with Pete, parodying A Whole New World from the Disney film Aladdin. The sketch was okay, but apparently sitting that close to each other all week really got them going. At the time, Kim was still involved with rapper Kanye West, who actually attended the live show, but apparently stormed out of the room following her scene with Pete. Apparently, Kanye had been present at rehearsals all week, and he remembers regularly seeing Pete and Kim smiling and laughing together while he was being ignored entirely. Kim and Kanye began their divorce process not long after that show, and simultaneously, Pete announced that him and Kim were official. They were only together for about a year, but it was enough time for Pete to get close to her family and even get a tattoo of her kid's name on his arm, which sounds hardcore, but he has like a million tattoos, so it's probably jammed between like a skull and an MGK portrait. Who knows? Number 5. Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker. Travis Barker is the drummer of the popular band Blink-182. Travis and Kourtney met after Barker had spent some time with the Kardashian crew at her mom Kris Jenner's house in California. Following the official news of their relationship, many fans were quick to comment on the short time between her relationship with Barker and that of her ex-boo, Luka Sabat. According to Kris herself, Travis and Kourtney began flirting while she was still seeing someone. Their connection was so strong from the beginning, but unfortunately that meant the end of one relationship but the start of a new one too. Kourtney appears to be very happy with the Blink-182 drummer, and Luka doesn't seem to have any issues with them being together, so I guess this is a cheating scandal with a happy ending for now. Number 4. Kim and Kanye. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West started dating in 2012 and they were officially married 2 years later in 2014. During their marriage, life was rocky to say the least. While Kim was fairly tame for the most part, as we all know, Kanye was slowly having a mental breakdown. He was posting hate speech and racially fueled tweets and constantly sharing his political views as well as publicly backing Donald Trump. Is it really any surprise that Kim found comfort in another man's arms? While hosting Saturday Night Live in 2021, Kim met Pete Davidson, previously mentioned, while still married to Kanye. Kanye discovered that Kim and Pete began dating following the live show, and it seemed to be the final breaking point. Apparently only a few months before the show, Ye and Kim were constantly arguing about everything. And following the divorce, Kim revealed that she would constantly be trying to help Kanye understand why his views and his words were just so wrong. She wanted him to get better, but instead he doubled down and filed for a divorce. Kim is now happily single and received joint custody of her 4 kids, so it's a win-win for the Kardashian clan, and for Kanye, well, Number 3. Tyga and Kylie Jenner. Michael Ray Stevenson, known professionally as Tyga, is an American rap artist with a long list of bops under his belt. In 2011, he was asked to perform at Kendall Jenner's Sweet 16, and her sister Kylie was smitten. The two would keep in contact over the years, but rumors of them being a couple were shot down constantly until 2012, when he broke off his relationship with fiancée Blac Chyna, also a rap artist. It appeared that the split was due to the revelation that Kylie and Tyga were in fact an item. Tyga looked to Twitter to defend his actions, telling people not to believe the rumors. He's been friends with the family forever, they're all just friends. A year later though, they posted a photo on Halloween of themselves wearing a couple's costume, Chucky and the bride of Chucky. A couple of years went by and the pair were constantly seen together on dates, posted several pictures together on Instagram, and Tyga even bought her a Ferrari on her 18th birthday. They eventually split, and Kylie has moved on a couple of times with her next partner, Party Next Door, who is a person. That is a terrible name. Even posting a photo on Instagram comparing his watches to Tyga's and claiming that the more diamonds the better. Alright boys, let's not stand around all day comparing watch sizes. Number 2. Kim Kardashian and Ray J. In this case, Kim was the staff that had the affair. You see, herself and the rap artist shared a 3-year relationship, but they met before Kim was famous while she was working as a stylist for his sister Brandy. At the time they met, Kim was still married to Damon Thomas, but apparently wasn't too happy with the relationship. She took part in an affair with Ray J and called it off with Thomas. During their time together, a certain tape was released online without Kim's permission, and the content contained explicit material of herself and Ray J doing the nasty. She sued the company that released it for $5 million to retrieve the rights and own the film. Following the release of the tape, their relationship quickly crumbled, and it was later revealed that both parties were cheating the entire time. And despite them having the knowledge of that, they just, they didn't care. They just kept doing it. Number 1. Kris Jenner and Robert Kardashian. Mama Kris Jenner met Robert Kardashian at a horse race in California in 1973, and immediately sparks flew. At that time, Kris was in a committed relationship with Cesar Sonato, a pro golfer. He was often gone so long that there were gaps in their relationship, and Robert filled that gap. Kris began an affair with Robert that lasted for quite some time, until one day, Cesar returned home early and walked in on the couple doing the no pants dance. Needless to say, Cesar broke it off with Kris right away, but Robert also broke things off with Kris, claiming that she wasn't mature enough for a serious relationship. Yeah, no duh, dude. Robert was basically a mistress. He wasn't much more mature himself. He began dating Elvis Presley's daughter, but that relationship failed too, and Robert ended up returning to Kris's arms. They were married for a little over a decade when Kris proved that she had not matured at all. She took part in another affair, and this time it was with soccer player Todd Waterman. Robert hired private investigators after becoming suspicious of Kris, and he was proven right. So if there's anything to take away from this video, is if you think your partner is cheating, you're probably right. People are horrible now. Number 10. Kim's nannies. Kim Kardashian is arguably one of the most famous of the Kardashian sisters, and it would also seem she's the busiest. For example, Kim has 4 kids, a skincare line, her Skims brand, she's attending law school, co-founded an equity team, and even recently hopped on the podcast train. In addition to filming her new reality show on Hulu. You may be asking yourself, how does one woman do all of that by herself? Well, she pays people to do it for her, duh. She has multiple assistants and nannies to help her stay above the overwhelming workload, but has been known to treat them as lesser than herself. For instance, on several occasions, Kim and her daughter North would go to lunch accompanied by a nanny, but Kim would always make her nanny sit at a separate table far away from them when they were in restaurants. But she is known to make her nannies also walk at least like 10 feet away from her at all times. Unless she has multiple nannies with her at once, then she likes to make them stand in like a V formation because it looks cool apparently. If they walk near her or attempt to try and walk side by side, she blows up at them behind closed doors. And needless to say, she has had many nannies over the year and has probably made a lot of them cry at least once. Number 9. Kourtney in general. While Kim may not be the best boss in the world, it's Kourtney who is known as the absolute worst boss of all time. According to former nannies, Kourtney was by far the worst Kardashian to work for. Not only is she a neat freak, needing every single thing to be exactly where it should be, but she's also known for being surprisingly cheap, even once calling a grocery store while she was shopping to compare the prices of a chicken breast. Because, if anyone needs that extra 99 cents, it's Kourtney. But this isn't the worst thing she's done. At one time, Kourtney's daughter had bitten a nanny so hard that she had to quit. But instead of letting it go and taking responsibility for not teaching her daughter how to act properly, she actually berated the nanny and told her that she should have said something to her daughter in the moment. Cause yes, blame the woman that you're paying to raise your child instead of the child itself, who's probably got some kind of an abandonment issue. Number 8. Toxic chemicals. Kylie Jenner is the youngest of the Kardashian clan, is extremely successful for her age. In 2019, she made the cover of Forbes magazine as the youngest self-made billionaire ever, following the successful partnership between her cosmetic brand and Ulta, a beauty salon company, which would allow the brand previously only available online and in random pop-up stores to be placed on shelves in Ulta's 1,000 plus stores. This is unfortunate considering the true nature of just where those products come from. You see, many employees at the factory that mix and package her makeup have reported that they were never given any proper safety equipment that one would require to do that job. They were only given hairnets, lab coats, and safety goggles, leaving their hands and faces completely exposed. And workers would regularly report migraines, mild chemical burns on their hands, and a myriad of other symptoms. If this isn't bad enough, they were also forced to act as human test subjects for Kylie's new products. Now, Kylie was very proud of her company not testing products on animals, but we can agree that using people like guinea pigs is like a billion times worse, right guys? Number 7. The underpay. While the Kardashians have had their problems with staff individually, there seems to be one specifically toxic trait that the family shares as a unit. They don't like to pay people. Former employees have come forward over the years calling out the family for not paying them fair wages or overtime hours. The Kardashians don't cover expenses, meaning gas, food, rent, anything that you need is paid out of pocket, with zero money coming back to you. To make matters worse, the Kardashians wouldn't pay them on a set amount of days, meaning you just kinda got a check when you got a check and had to deal with it in between A and B. You would think with the family being one of the richest in the world that they would at least pay the people that help run their lives. Now, while they have a massive staff of people cooking their food, folding their clothes, and raising their children, they barely even acknowledge their existence. Just imagine what would happen if that staff decided to walk out. The family would crumble in less than a day. Number 6. Factory workers. Popping back to Kylie's makeup factory for a moment, we felt the need to split her misdoings into 2 separate entries simply because of just how messed up this place really is. Not only do they not have proper safety equipment and are basically used as human test subjects whenever Kylie wants, the factory itself is small and cramped, with many employees claiming that there were too many workers and not enough space. This description sounds very similar to, a sweatshop, which is a word describing a workplace in which the employees work ridiculous hours and brutal conditions for nearly nothing for pay. And a lot of people agreed with that statement. One former tester recounts having to constantly go back and forth to the bathroom as her anxiety was always through the roof. She was around so many people so much of her day, and it was such a terrible work environment. We completely understand the need to escape. At one point a few years back, Kylie even refused to pay her employees at a garment factory in Bangladesh, leaving thousands of employees with no money and no idea when or if they were going to return to work. Man, you know what? You suck, Kylie. Number 5. Victoria. Victoria Valero has been Kylie's close personal assistant since 2015, but the pair go back to 2014 when she was interning as a personal assistant for Kylie's mother, Kris. After gaining the family's trust, she was hired as Kylie's house manager at first, but soon after became her personal assistant. Herself and Jenner became very close over the years, and Victoria was even present at the secret birth of Kylie's daughter, Stormi. Now you would think with being so close to the family through thick and thin that she would want to stick around, right? Well, all good things must come to an end, as Victoria decided to quit in 2019. Many fans allege that she had just quit her job to focus on becoming an Instagram influencer, but that was far from her real reason for leaving. Being in that family means seeing a lot of stuff and doing a lot of stuff. And Victoria was basically in charge of scheduling Kylie's life, booking appointments, meetings, massages, all of this stressful enough, basically being a 24/7 gig, but the job was also very degrading, with Kylie having Victoria even pull out a stool once and set it up outside so that Kylie could get out of her car smoother. I think anyone in their right mind would want to get out of that job as quickly as possible. Number 4. Paid in exposure. When Andre Turbia, a very famous YouTube animator and content creator, was asked to work with Kylie Jenner, he thought that his life would change forever. He was under the impression that the collaboration would grant him a huge amount of money, possibly a guest spot on her reality TV show, and maybe some shoutouts online via Instagram and Twitter. However, when Andre brought up the topic of his compensations to Jenner, she responded with, the company doesn't actually have a budget right now to pay you, so we're just gonna have to pay you in exposure. Like, okay, that's cool. You can't cook exposure in a frying pan and eat it for dinner though, and I'm pretty sure it's not currency accepted at any gas stations or banks that I know of. And of course, by exposure, she meant that Andre's name was going to be printed as small as possible underneath her content. Andre did what anyone in their right mind would do in that situation and refused to work with her, telling her to take her exposure and shove it where the sun don't shine. Number 3, GoFundMe. In March 2021, Kylie, oh look, she's back again, shared an Instagram post asking for prayers for one of her makeup makeup artist named Samuel Rhoda. The post redirected fans to a GoFundMe page where they were asking to donate money for covering his medical bills for an upcoming surgery. That's right, the woman made a feature on Forbes' top 60 self-made women and was asking her fans to give over the goods. So why would she not just use some of her billions of dollars to cover the bills herself? Well, she went online to claim that her and Sam didn't actually know each other personally, but she had worked with him a few years ago and thought that he was a sweetheart. Supposedly, her current makeup artist had shared a post about Samuel's accident, which included a link to a GoFundMe campaign created by his family. She went on to let fans know that she herself donated like $5,000. Okay, sure, that's a ton of money for us, but for Jenner that's like $5. So something tells me the surgery is going to be a little bit more than that. This is just another instance proving that Kylie is the absolute worst. Number 2, Forbes flub. Oh, I'm sorry, was that not enough proof for you that Kylie sucks? Well, hey, here you go. As mentioned earlier in this list, Kylie Jenner made the cover of Forbes magazine in 2019 as the youngest self-made billionaire ever, following the successful partnership between her cosmetic brand, named after herself, and Ulta, a beauty salon company. Well, it turned out that wasn't really the case. Jenner allegedly sold half of her cosmetics company, Kylie Cosmetics, to beauty giant Coty in a deal worth $1.2 billion. Now, this was huge and considered one of the greatest celebrity cash outs of all time. But the first rule of being a famous person is, if you can help it, try not to lie. Especially to like Forbes magazine, who did some digging and revealed that Jenner was actually inflating the size and profit margins of her business. It turned out the cosmetic brand was on a much smaller scale than originally thought, as it was uncovered Jenner only actually made around $314 million after taxes for her company. Several financial advisors backed up the story, claiming that they were berated into complying with the lie and made to help maintain the numbers for publicity's sake. The mother of the family, Kris, even played a key role in gathering false business documents to send to Forbes, making her company appear to be in the billions. Remember, if you can't figure something out, just ask mom. And number 1, the lawsuit. In March of 2021, a lawsuit was arranged by several of Kim's former employees. The plaintiffs claim Kardashian West failed to pay overtime, cover expenses, or provide any legally mandated breaks, which, like, hey, super illegal. They also never received actual pay stubs or any proof of payment whatsoever. They were also made to purchase everything out of pocket, and one plaintiff was even fired on the spot for simply addressing his concerns to Kim. And when the rest were eventually let go, they received no type of severance package or pay of any kind. It was also uncovered that Kim would keep 10% of all of their earnings for tax purposes, but failed to report their employment to tax authorities. Kim's argument was that she could not be held responsible for any of this, as most of her employees were supposedly hired and paid by a third-party company, meaning that she herself was not technically their direct employer and therefore could not be liable. Kim maintains that she paid people on time and that they were suing the wrong person, but if that were the case, maybe Kardashian would have used some of her high status and influence long ago to make things work for her staff so that, hey, maybe she wouldn't be getting sued right now.
At number 10, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey isn't the nicest person ever. We already know this. She's had run-ins with the paparazzi which have not gone over well. She's had some bad relationships with others. She's known for being something of a diva. The theme here is that Mariah doesn't really treat people with the respect that they deserve, and this is probably why she's been sued for this kind of thing before. There was a lawsuit from one of Mariah's former assistants that claimed that the singer peed on her, ridiculed her body, and called her some pretty rude names. Her former assistant said that she was hired by the singer to be on call 24/7 and assisted both Mariah and her manager. Though she was paid a salary of $250,000 a year, this wage couldn't cover up the torment that she sustained from Mariah. But her case wasn't the only one up against the singer at the time. While this case was being disputed, Mariah had just settled one with her former manager, which cited breach of contract, harassment, and unpaid wages. It seems like though she pays her people well, she doesn't treat them as well as she should. Many other employees have had similar horror stories, which just shows that maybe working for the Queen of Christmas isn't as holly jolly as you might think.
And at number 9, Christian Bale. Christian Bale is definitely the person I would want to work for the least, because he uses intimidation and threats of physical harm towards his assistants. One of his former assistants had such a bad experience working for the star, he actually wrote a whole book exposing him. The book's called Christian Bale: The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. It was an inside look into the negative experiences the assistant witnessed while working for him. Apparently one time fans approached Bale for an autograph, but they ended up running away crying because of how mean he was. Another time Bale got fan mail sent to his home, and Bale told the assistant that the fan should be quote eliminated, adding quote a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain prevents any screaming. Let me know how it goes. Things were so bad the assistant was diagnosed with PTSD afterwards.
At number 8, Naomi Campbell. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has been in the fashion industry for over 30 years. Over this time, she's had her fair share of scandals and feuds which have painted Naomi as the industry's mean girl. She's known for having had violent outbursts, and Naomi has been accused of being violent on 11 occasions and has been convicted of harming others 4 times. Some of the reported violent incidents include the model physically harming her assistant, grabbing her by the throat and beating her with a phone, harming another assistant and allegedly holding her hostage, throwing her phone at a housekeeper, and other accounts of emotional and physical distress. Out of these incidents, the model has been sued on multiple occasions, and they all mostly just settled out of court, but she was required to take an anger management class on top of all of her payouts. There's been some things that have been covered up, but luckily these days Naomi doesn't seem to be harming others like she used to and has moved on from this dark time.
And at number 7, Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian was sued by 7 former staff members in May of this year. The employees claimed that they were not paid enough or given breaks while employed at her California home. The lawsuit claimed that the staff never received pay stubs and weren't paid on a regular basis. They also were not given any breaks for meals or rest, and they weren't paid for all the hours they worked, along with other issues regarding compensation. But Kim claimed this was not true and that she was not responsible for paying these employees. Apparently they worked for another company and were paid through this third party. Kim's spokesperson said, quote, "Kim is not party to the agreement made between the vendor and their workers. Therefore, she is not responsible for how the vendor manages their business."
At number 6, Marilyn Manson. This year, a lot of dark information came out about singer Marilyn Manson. Multiple women came forward recounting their awful experiences with Manson, saying that the singer had harmed them severely. Some celebrities were part of the group of people who spoke out against the singer, but on top of that, one of Marilyn's assistants has also spoken out against the singer and even filed a lawsuit against him for having endured so much while working for him. The singer's assistant claimed that he had tried to kiss her, touch her inappropriately, and even made her work 48 hours straight. It was also claimed that Manson lured his assistant into working for him with promises of quote, artistic collaborations and creative opportunities. End quote. The assistant said that she lived in constant fear of one of his violent outbursts, and she said that she felt used, comparing herself to a piece of meat. To think that any of this happened to the people affected by Manson's actions is absolutely heartbreaking, and justice needs to be served.
Halfway at number 5, Sharon Stone. Stone was sued by her former nanny after that nanny accused her of violating labor laws. The nanny also claimed that Stone made derogatory comments about her ethnicity. The nanny is of Filipino heritage and claims she was, quote, repeatedly subjected to numerous derogatory comments and slurs by Stone related to her Filipino ethnicity and heritage, mainly during her last 6 months of employment. These comments were allegedly relating to the nanny's accent. Apparently, the nanny was told not to speak so Stone's kids would not develop an accent like hers. Stone denied the claims and said it was, quote, an absurd lawsuit with made-up and fabricated claims filed by a disgruntled ex-employee who's obviously looking to get money any way she can. But only 1 year after this suit, Stone was sued by another employee, her then maid Angelica Castillo, for, quote, wrongful termination.
At number 4, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is one of the most famous singers out there, so you know that she makes a lot of money, but even with all of her riches, apparently she wanted to keep a lot of it for herself and not pay her staff. Back in 2011, Gaga was sued by a former assistant who claimed that the singer had cheated her out of her overtime wages when she worked alongside the singer for 13 months from 2009 to February 2010. According to the assistant, they were supposed to earn a flat rate of $50,000 annually in the first year, and in the second year of working for the singer, that rate was bumped up to $75 grand. It's still a good paycheck, but the assistant claimed that she never got her bonus overtime pay despite the fact that she had to work and be on call 24/7. Though the case was supposed to go to trial in 2013, they ended up coming to a settlement agreement before they ever entered the courtroom.
And at number 3, Celine Dion. In 2012, Celine and her late husband were sued by their former handyman, Keith Sturdivant, for unpaid wages. This handyman worked at their Florida compound and performed duties like cleaning shutters, repairing appliances, and running errands. The lawsuit goes on to allege that Dion improperly and illegally designed Sturdivant as an exempt employee, which allowed them to avoid paying him overtime, which he is rightfully owed. Because of this, he is suing for unpaid back wages that he was entitled to during employment. At the time, he said others were also not paid what they were owed, so it wasn't clear if other people might be joining him in the suit. The suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.
At number 2, Courtney Love. In 2012, Courtney Love got into some serious drama with one of her former assistants, and it got pretty ugly. Courtney's former assistant filed a lawsuit against the singer seeking wages, expenses, and punitive damages for quote, wrongful firing, wage and overtime violations, false promise, breach of contract, negligent and intentional misrepresentation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The assistant had nothing but negative reviews for having worked for Courtney, and she was prepared to tell the whole world about it as she was planning to publish an expose about her time with Courtney. In a copy of the book Proposal, this expose promised all kinds of inside knowledge about the celebrity, including details about how she is a quote, alleged hoarder, media manipulator, and drug user, end quote. Nothing ever came of this book, I don't think, and I'm not quite sure what happened with the rest of the case, but I for one would have loved to know what this assistant had to say because I have a feeling it would have been very juicy.
And finally at number 1, Charlie Sheen. Back in 2015, Charlie Sheen was sued for $1 million by a former staff member named Keith Fitzgerald. When Fitzgerald was originally hired in 2013, he was offered a 3-year contract with a salary of $300,000, medical benefits, and 20% incentive bonus as well. He was supposed to work for 3 years but was fired after only 5 months. Because of this inconsistency, the staff member sued for premature termination. Allegedly, Sheen didn't pay for any of his work either. The lawsuit said in part, quote, Fitzgerald's employment relationship was prematurely terminated after approximately 5 months without any explanation. Fitzgerald received no compensation whatsoever for any of the services he performed for Charlie Sheen at any time whatsoever. Sheen denied the claims and called the whole thing bogus, but the suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.
Celebrity assistants are not to be messed with, and former assistants for Kim K, Anna Wintour, Lindsay Lohan, and more are ready to tell all. Before Kim Kardashian leaves the house on a typical day, there will be numerous outfit changes. At least 5 or 6 if her former husband was there, an insider told Radar. Kim will tell one of her assistants to fetch more clothes from her massive closet, and then afterwards, she's gonna discard them on the floor. She's never gonna bother to hang them back up. That's what the assistants are for. And they also have to restock her closet right. If not, they're in trouble. According to the source, Kim is very particular about how she wants sweaters folded, and in one incident, a staffer didn't do it up to her standards, so Kim took one sweater out of the middle of the stack, completely messing up what was just done. Kim's closet was the holy land in the home, and she wanted it to look pristine at all times. She even had staffers stay late at night to organize it after returning from any kind of event. Britney Spears' former longtime assistant and friend, Felicia Culotta, spoke out about her notoriously controversial conservatorship on a couple of occasions, but one of the most shocking claims came when she pretty much confirmed what fans already knew, that Britney's conservatorship had seemingly driven a wedge between her and her inner circle. Who had been by Britney's side since the very start of her fame in the late 1990s, was very candid in the 2021 documentary, The New York Times Presents Controlling Britney Spears, claiming she felt Britney's dad, Jamie Spears, had pushed her out of Britney's life. It slowly became where I wasn't allowed by her side and wasn't allowed to have a conversation without other people present, which was very odd, Culotta said, suggesting those involved in the conservatorship left Britney isolated. I don't have any way of getting in touch with her at this point. All the numbers that I have for her now are changed. Lindsay Lohan's assistant rolled on her when he spoke to cops after her car accident on Pacific Coast Highway back in 2012, and that's a big reason why things took the turn they did in the justice system, according to TMZ. Cops interviewed Lindsay's assistant at the time, Gavin, shortly after the crash, and this was at the hospital where Lindsay was being treated, and according to law enforcement sources, he told police he was riding in the passenger seat when the accident occurred, and Lindsay was driving. So as you now know, Lindsay told the cops she was a passenger in her Porsche, but authorities didn't believe her, and lying to cops gets somebody in a lot of trouble. Gavin's statement was the final nail in the coffin, when he said he saw Lindsay behind the wheel. Via Twitter, he also posted comments directed at Lindsay, urging her to get help. At Lindsay Lohan, after bailing you out last night, I hope and pray you get the help you so desperately need, he wrote. We are all rooting for you. And shortly after, he posted another message, writing, life is not a movie, it's a reality that needs to be faced. Ouch. Mariah Carey's former personal assistant, Leanna Azarin, claimed she was subjected to battery and harassment during her approximately 2 years of employment before being wrongfully terminated by the singer in 2017. Well, that's according to a lawsuit filed with the Los Angeles Superior Court on the same day that Carey sued Leanna, accusing her former assistant of secretly filming embarrassing videos in violation of a non-disclosure agreement and trying to extort her out of $8 million. According to a copy of Leanna's 32-page complaint, she says she was hired by Carey in September of 2015 at a salary of $250,000 per year, which eventually increased to $328,500. Leanna claimed the job entailed her to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist both Carey and the singer's former manager. According to the lawsuit, Leanna claims the manager subjected her to verbal and physical harm, including repeatedly ridiculing her about her body by putting iPhones, remote controls, and utensils under certain parts. Apparently, the former manager slapped her in body parts and called her names that we can't repeat. On multiple occasions, Leanna claimed the manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. According to the lawsuit, Carey knew about and was present for much of the alleged mistreatment, but permitted it to continue. And when Leanna complained about the manager's conduct in October of 2017, she was fired 1 month later. So she was suing for battery, discrimination, harassment, and wrongful termination. The manager's attorney couldn't be reached for comment on the allegations. But according to People, Carey's lawsuit accuses her former assistant of being a grifter, a peeping Tom, and an extortionist, because all of these secret videos were filmed, and apparently Leanna claimed if she released it, it would be personally embarrassing and professionally damaging to Mariah Carey. Leanna displayed the intimate videos to her friends and coworkers and said that if she was ever let go, she'd sell them for a profit and buy herself a home. While some may assume The Devil Wears Prada is an exaggeration of how Vogue head honcho Anna Wintour operates, Amy Odell, the author of Anna the Biography, has learned that the magazine executive can really act as dramatic as the character that was portrayed famously by Meryl Streep. For the book, Odell chatted with some of the fashionistas' former assistants, and since they spelled the T anonymously, they didn't bite their tongue. To start, an employee referred to as Assistant A revealed their workday could kick off as early as 7:30 in the morning. The first task is essentially setting up the office. So the reason you came in at 7:30 is because Anna comes in before 8. She might come in anywhere between 7:45 to 8. So 7:30 to 7:45 gives the second assistant the opportunity to gather all the things she'll need for the day, printing out or setting up her schedule, listening to the voicemails and leaving out any messages that might be urgent for her to respond to in the morning, making sure all the periodicals and newspapers that she'd want to read are set out, and then, depending on when she is definitely coming in, potentially getting her coffee and breakfast. According to one report, Anna Wintour always asks for a blueberry muffin from Starbucks, though it mostly goes untouched. Assistant C had a similar play-by-play, noting they'd arrive in the office around 7:30, then you have to respond to any emails that Anna sent over the night before. Then get your own work done. Regardless of their early start to the day, the assistants had to be available around the clock. Requests came in day and night. One assistant had dreams. They would wake up in the middle of the night and think, do I have to check my email? This was Assistant B. She's always talking to you. It would just be constant emails. She was just firing away all the time, always needing something. Khloe Kardashian has found herself in hot water with former assistants numerous times. Most recently, her former assistant, Matthew Manhard, who worked for her from 2019 to 2022, filed a civil lawsuit claiming he wasn't paid for overtime, wasn't allowed to take breaks, and worse. In a lawsuit obtained by TMZ, Manhard claimed he was let go by Khloe in November of 2022 after becoming a member of staff in January of 2019. The lawsuit claimed Kardashian fired him after he returned to work in November following a knee injury from May that prevented him from working. Christian Bale's former assistant, Harrison Chung, wrote an entire book about his time with his former employer, a book entitled Christian Bale, The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. He wrote some of the wildest things he did for Bale, saying, if Christian was away filming on location, I would take care of his 5 pets, along with stray possums in the backyard. I would do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO right before he hit the red carpet, to making emergency sock runs if he was all out of clean ones. Actress Taryn Manning found a horseshoe somewhere when the criminal case against her for harming her makeup artist was dismissed, with one small string attached. So Manning was arrested after she allegedly punched and kicked her makeup artist / friend / roommate after a night of heavy drinking. She was charged with causing harm and obstruction of breathing or redness circulation. The victim, Holly Hartman, declined to prosecute the case, and a judge granted an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal. To translate, if Taryn keeps her nose clean and does some community service, the arrest and criminal charges go away, as if it never happened. So Holly was Taryn's assistant and makeup artist for a long time, but everything ended. Naomi Campbell isn't exactly the nicest boss to her assistants, as many have claimed. Back in 1998, Georgia Galanis filed a lawsuit against Campbell, saying she struck her with her phone and grabbed her by the throat. Campbell pleaded guilty. 8 years later, another assistant named Amanda Bratt alleged she was struck in the face with a phone numerous times, according to Nicki Swift's website. Another assistant said Campbell gave insane demands, with one, Rebecca White, claiming she put 25 lily-scented candles in any room Campbell wanted. This was according to the New York Post. And finally for today, Lady Gaga, who is embroiled in quite the bitter lawsuit with her former aide Jennifer O'Neill, said it wasn't great. Jennifer O'Neill gave us mere mortals a glimpse into that when, apparently, Lady Gaga once claimed she was the queen of the universe, and O'Neal did not want to be her slave. So in court papers, Gaga whined that O'Neal failed in simple duties, such as laying out her toothbrush and soap so that she knew where they were. Apparently O'Neal lived large off her dime, wore her clothes, bagged the best bed on her private jet, and left poor Lady Gaga to lug her own suitcases.
And that's not right.
It's not true at all.
Well, then I shouldn't feel that way.
You shouldn't.
Right. So then please stop badgering me into sitting to meet with you when I have a lot of other things going on as well.
Yeah, but
I can't be present for you if I can't be present for myself.
There are so many celebrities that treat their assistants terribly. I was able to make a part 3 of this series, and it's still as juicy as the last ones. And I still cannot believe that some of these stories are true. But for the ones that were handled in court, we have all sides of the story. I'm Mackenzie, you're watching Beyond the Screen, and let's get into it. Starting off at number 10, we have Lance Armstrong. Lance was exposed by his assistant right around the time that he was being exposed for doping, right after he was stripped of 7 Tour de France titles. His assistant decided it was a good time to come clean about everything, and the assistant, Mike Anderson, told Outside Magazine that Lance came back from Europe with cash stuffed into his pants, with the cash being from sleazy races that he did under the table. Also, Lance would apparently do everything possible to not be tested by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and that's why he got away with it for so many years. And apparently while he was at Livestrong events, which were events to support other cancer survivors, he would allegedly talk badly about the event and say things like, quote, "I hate these effing things." Ooh. Lastly, the assistant said he also left his wife in a very, quote, abrupt and cruel fashion, which doesn't say very good things about a person. In at number 9, Whitney Houston. The late singer's assistant Robin Crawford exposed Whitney's private life when she told the truth about her and Whitney's relationship. This was all done in the assistant's tell-all book when Crawford exposed that her and Whitney had a romantic relationship. According to the assistant, Whitney was a lesbian and everyone knew it. But again, this is just what the assistant said, not what we're saying is true. Whitney's mother, Chrissy Houston, was against their relationship, saying it was unnatural for 2 women to be that close. Even Whitney's husband at the time, Bobby Brown, did not like Robin Crawford, maybe because he felt that something more was going on. Crawford also said she was the first person to tell Whitney's mom about her drug use that ended up taking Whitney's life. In at number 8, David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff was well known back in the day as a classic heartthrob, known for his roles on The Young and the Restless and Baywatch. And he was even so popular that, fun fact, he actually used to hold the record for the most watched man on television, which is crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing. But it seems that his days of being a ladies' man are not over, and I don't blame him at all for that. You know, do your thing, Hasselhoff. But the issue here for the assistant is that one of his old assistants exposed that he actually makes the assistant go up to the women he's pursuing and ask them out for Hasselhoff. This is in the form of the assistant giving the women one of Hasselhoff's business cards, and I don't know if that would impress me. Like someone asking me out on behalf of someone. That could really go like 2 ways. I don't think I'd like it very much. I'd be like, what do you mean, ask me out yourself, Hasselhoff? I don't know. And at number 7, Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande is known for many things, and one of them is the fact that she's been called a diva by fellow celebrities. One of her diva-esque traits is that she likes to be carried around after a long day of walking. And since she's so small, it's probably not a very difficult task for the right assistant, but it's definitely a strange one. And this rumor got so big that Ariana had to address it, and she ended up confirming it to be true. This was in the form of an Instagram post, where the caption was, quote, "Jones carrying me off stage. Post-show ritual when my feet are broken." She also joked about it some more with James Corden in a bit they did where James carried her to a Starbucks while she was ordering her drink. Of course, it was a grande drink. And at number 6, Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart is a very busy and meticulous woman, so obviously she's quite a handful for any assistant, but she knows it and doesn't really care, with Martha admitting in a blog post that she keeps her assistant incredibly busy, with organizing in particular. One task that her assistant had was organizing all of Martha's cosmetics into labeled clear plastic tubs in her basement dressing room. Martha explained it in detail in the blog post, explaining the assistant removes items from the bins and recategorizes every item, reevaluating what is still usable and throwing out expired items. And obviously that entire system seems like a total pain in the ass, especially if Martha makes her do that for all the rooms in the house. But also if you're an assistant for Martha, I mean, you better expect a lot of housework. Like that is one person, I would not be Martha Stewart's assistant because whatever I do would not be good enough. I swear, she can't even have it. I feel like she would have to be her own assistant. She's so meticulous about everything. Halfway number 5, Garth Brooks. Country singer Garth Brooks' former assistant, Lisa Sanderson, who worked for him for 20 years, not only exposed the star, but also sued him for close to $500,000. saying in the suit that he was, quote, paranoid, angry, deceitful, and a vindictive man who will turn against those closest to him on a dime. Yikes, so clearly she's not very fond of him. Apparently the assistant also claimed that she tried to get him a career in TV and movies, but his demands were so insane that it never actually happened. With one example citing how he would refuse to work with anyone because he didn't want to share the limelight with other stars. Even saying that he refused a role in the massive movie Twister because he didn't want to be outshined by the tornado. Brooks' lawyers of course denied these claims, but with accusations as insane as that, I don't know how that could be made up. Like, how can someone make up that he was afraid of being outshined by a tornado? This has gotta be true, right? And at number 4, Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro actually might be one of the worst cases of treating an assistant terribly, as there's proof of it happening. The actor was actually sued for $12 million for gender discrimination by his former assistant, Graham Chase Robinson. The assistant claims that De Niro made abusive and sexist comments to her, and even would initiate unwanted physical contact. And this treatment was not just allegations, there was actual proof of it on a recorded phone call. In one call, De Niro berated her for not answering, and the audio is shocking. The lawsuit also claimed that one of the reasons she was paid so little was because she was a woman, with De Niro telling her that she could get pregnant using sperm from a married male co-worker. She also claimed that he would meet her only by wearing bathrobe or pajamas, and then asked her to scratch his back. So much wrong with all of that. And at number 3, David Beckham. This one is a case of an assistant exposing their employer cheating. But in this one, Beckham was allegedly cheating with the assistant. Back in 2004, the assistant, Rebecca Luz, said in an interview that she had an affair with David Beckham. Allegedly, the affair began with flirting and texting and gradually developed into a bond. But after a while, the relationship was purely physical, which made her feel dirty and cheap. Beckham vehemently denied the claims, and clearly Victoria Beckham didn't believe the claims, or they were able to work it through, as the couple is still together and happily married. And at number 2, Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock's personal life is pretty private, so it's hard to know what kind of boss that she would be. But based on accounts from her past assistants, she can be a bit of a nightmare. One strange request is that her assistant must always make sure the curtains in her home are kept closed at all times. Sandra's also known to have a pretty bad temper when things don't go her way, and unfortunately she takes that out on the assistant. According to one witness, while they were standing in line for a coffee, she berated her assistant for being 5 minutes late. And obviously, there's two sides to every story, but based on that, brief description, seems like a bit of an overreaction, if I do say so myself. And at number 1, Taryn Manning. Taryn Manning is another person who was absolutely awful to her assistant, and it was so bad it had to be handled in court. The former assistant, Hillian Hartman, reported that the actor was physical with her multiple times, and Manning was later ordered to stay away from the assistant after the two had a vicious brawl at the Dream Hotel in New York that left her assistant covered in bruises. According to a lawsuit that was filed, Manning choked and punched her personal assistant and whipped her with a wet towel. She also sprayed Windex in her eyes and mouth. And of course, after doing something like that, you're gonna feel the wrath of the law, as you should. And Manning was charged with misdemeanor assault and choking. Very, very rightfully so. That is, like, what? I don't even know how a person could do that to another person, just...
Kicking off the list at number 10 is Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle is more than a little divisive, and she has been for a hot minute. Ever since her and Prince Harry became a thing, people love to dish out how she's apparently incredibly mean to those who work under her. Interestingly though, it's usually those who don't like her that seem to bring these issues forward, but nonetheless, there have been multiple reports of Meghan treating royal staffers less than appropriately. According to one story, the former actor was tasting food for her wedding, and she had reportedly requested a, quote, macrobiotic alliterative option. Now, I don't even know what those words mean, but apparently it means no eggs, because she got very upset when she thought there was egg in the dish, and well, there wasn't. According to Vanity Fair's royal reporter, Katie Nichol, quote, she said, no, I can taste it. I can taste there's an egg in this dish. And I think there was a bit of an upset when suddenly the Queen walked in and she just quietly took Meghan to the side and said, Meghan, in this family, we don't speak to people like that. There were also a series of leaked emails written by Jason Nauf, a former palace communications secretary, that were sent to Prince William's private secretary with the names of 2 bullied staffers subbed for X and Y. In the email, Nauf wrote, The Duchess seems intent on always having someone in her sights. She is bullying Y and seeking to undermine her confidence. We have had report after report from people who have witnessed unacceptable behavior towards Y. Number 9. Anna Wintour. You ever seen The Devil Wears Prada? If you haven't, well, be better and go watch it. The main villain of the film and the book it's based on is the assistant protagonist boss, Miranda Priestley, the powerful New York City-based editor-in-chief of the fictional fashion magazine Runway, who of course is fictional. But the author of the book, Lauren Weisberger, worked as a junior assistant for Anna Wintour, a New York City-based editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine since 1988, and that is not fictional. What does that tell us? Lauren has since said that the list of demands made by the editor in the novel is made up of both fact and fiction, with the factual parts being inspired by what she endured early in her career under Wintour. There is a whole book semi-based on the way that this woman would treat her assistants and how it completely changes a person for the worst. So that's all you need to know, really. Number 8. Katie Couric. Back in 2021, journalist and presenter Katie Couric published a memoir called Going There, which was supposed to be all fun and gossipy, but it was decidedly not that. She described in the book how she froze out female colleagues at NBC to protect her, quote, turf at the top, and how she loved getting under rival female colleagues' skin. According to a TV industry insider, Couric contributed to the infamous toxicity at NBC and was part of a culture that wasn't supportive of women. In her book, she talks down on women from Martha Stewart to Diane Sawyer and Deborah Norville, and it's all for the ambition they show, which is pretty similar to Katie's own ambition. Those who have worked for Couric say that her memoir is par for the course with the celeb. According to an anonymous senior news producer, quote, she gives fresh meaning to that old saying, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. Another female co-worker whose feelings she hurt is Ashley Banfield, who staffers said was humiliated by Couric at the 2000 Olympics and treated like a child. Couric even admits in her book that she gave Banfield the cold shoulder because helping her would have been, quote, self-sabotage. There's also the fact that she kind of excused the actions of Matt Lauer, but that's a whole separate thing all of its own. Number 7. Naomi Campbell. The legendary model Naomi Campbell changed the fashion industry and is still one of the most important supermodels ever. If you think that means she must be nice, then let me introduce you to the way the world works. Naomi has been so bad that it's led to actual legal action, multiple times. As some examples, in 2000, Campbell was sued by her assistant Georgina Galanis, as apparently the model blunt forced Galanis with a telephone in a hotel room and then threatened to push her out of a moving car. In 2004, Campbell supposedly introduced her personal assistant, Amy Castellado, to her forehead with force and then bit her lip and yanked her to the floor while screaming, "You effing worthless bee." I can't actually say the words, but I think you can infer what I'm trying to say here. And then in 2006, Campbell allegedly pulled another blunt force on her housekeeper, Anna Scolavino, with a mobile phone. That same year, Campbell is said to have open palmed her personal assistant, Amanda Brack, and struck her on the head, again with a mobile phone. So what I'm saying is that 1, she is literally physical with people, and 2, her choice of tool for these interactions seems to always be some form of communication device. So if you ever see Naomi Campbell with a phone or like a walkie-talkie or something, just be on guard, okay? Because she's vicious with that. She's vicious with it, that's all I'm saying. All jokes aside though, between 1998 and 2010, 8 employees have accused the supermodel of getting physical with them, and I don't think we should just let that off lightly. Number 6. Victoria Beckham. If you thought that the Spice Girl, who went by Posh Spice, wasn't going to be at least a little problematic with her staff, well, I don't know, I guess you were wrong, huh? Look at that. A former nanny of fashion designer and former Spice Girl Victoria Beckham has revealed that Victoria expects all the nannies of her household to answer to the name Joe, even if their name is not Joe. So, if you're working with Naomi Campbell, you get dinged up by the wonders of modern communication, but if you're working for Victoria Beckham and her kids, your individual identity is at stake. So pick your poison, I guess. Remind me to never work for a celebrity, ever. Apparently, this is because the very first nanny of Beckham's daughter Harper was named Joe, and I suppose this rule is to not confuse the kid? But you're telling me that your kid can't understand the basic principles of jobs and employee turnover? I don't know, seems a little suspicious. Number 5, Madonna. She may be one of the most influential artists in pop music, but Madonna has a rep. I think someone somewhere probably knew she would be on a list like this, and maybe it was you. Ooh. Madonna has a huge team of people under her, and while in one instance you would have her backup dancers willing to get arrested for dancing provocatively in her shows in Toronto, you'd have way more instances of them just not being paid or not being paid in full, which has led her employees to sue her multiple times. She has fired or lost staff for taking time off, being upset about the crazy long hours they're expected to work, the fact that they don't get enough breaks, and for being required to be on call 24/7. On top of that, she's been sued multiple times for acting inappropriately with her staff, and a couple of years ago, an anonymous source revealed that when one of Madonna's dancers broke her arm during practice, instead of being concerned, Madonna threw a fit. Number 4, Lady Gaga. I know the Lady Gaga fans are many, and I know they are powerful, but alas, if your idol is kind of the worst sometimes, I am honor bound to talk about it. Sorry. Gaga's former assistant Jennifer O'Neill says that Lady Gaga has a, quote, big head, and that her demands became bigger and bigger once she started to get bigger. That same assistant was the one who eventually sued the artist for $400,000 in unpaid overtime, which was settled out of court. Not only did she not get paid what she fairly earned, but the assistant had discussed some of the expectations of the job once Gaga had gotten big. She had to handle around 20 bags of luggage at the same time, handle all the singer's communications, and she was on call at every moment of the day. According to O'Neill, she was by her side virtually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That includes sleeping in the same bed with her because she did not sleep alone. And Jennifer wasn't even given breaks for food or sleep, so imagine how that worked out. Not very well. Number 3, James Corden. From what I know, Late Late Show host James Corden being exposed as kinda just the worst is a more recent revelation. There have been a few different stories that I've heard of, including a little back and forth with Sir Patrick Stewart at an awards show a few years back, which you can watch on YouTube, and I suggest you do because it's kind of really awkward and really funny, but the story I hear the most involves James being a menace to the service industry. According to Balthazar owner Keith McNally, who took to Instagram on October 17th, 2022 to publicly ban James Corden from the New York City restaurant, James Corden is, quote, a talented comic but a tiny cretin of a man. Which is just hilarious. In his Instagram post, he detailed multiple incidents in which James was rude, dismissive, or nasty to the restaurant staff, calling the late night host the worst he'd had in 25 years of hospitality service. That's coming from a guy who runs a New York restaurant, so you know he's seen some things. But even though McNally forgave Corden and lifted his ban, it got people talking. Like former Spice Girl Mel B, who dubbed James Corden the biggest D-head in Hollywood while on Britain's The Big Narsty Show on December 2nd, 2022. According to her, James feels people are beneath him. She said, quote, whether it be production, camera guys, sound lighting, we all work for the same thing, so you should always be nice. And he hasn't been very nice. Number 2, Vin Diesel. If you think having a co-producer credit on the absolutely massive Fast and Furious franchise would go to someone's head, well, you'd be correct. Look at you go. Armed with his producer credit, Vin Diesel has been able to get away with a lot of tardiness on his Fast and the Furious sets. With the power to make decisions about pretty much everything, Vin has apparently peed off quite a few cast and crew members on his films. Apparently, he ain't a fan of 7 AM Monday morning call times for set, which is kind of understandable. So, the whole production was forced to make it 10 AM just for him. These are 12-hour days, usually more actually, just so we understand what's going on here. But even with that adjusted time schedule, Vin was often 30 minutes to an hour late to shoot scenes. And it wasn't because he was late to set, it's because he was chillin' in his 1,100 square foot, 2-story custom-built gold trailer with $70,000 worth of technology, round-the-clock video surveillance, and granite countertops in the kitchen. I'm actually not joking, and that trailer does indeed follow him around the world to sets. It's actually kinda cool, not gonna lie, but not cool enough to hold up entire productions. Vin also makes very big decisions about what will and won't happen on the films, and he would tick off a lot of people doing that. One of them famously being The Rock, who made a post about it online. Now, The Rock regrets that action, but as he said in a later interview, quote, "Yet, interestingly enough, it was as if every single crew member found their way to me and either quietly thanked me or sent me a note. But yeah, it wasn't my best day sharing that." And finally, in at number 1, Alec Baldwin. No, I'm not going to be talking about the fact that Alec Baldwin accidentally took someone's life on set, but I will be talking about how the actor has been accused of belittling customer service workers. In May 2023, a server accused Alec of calling her a peasant. The anonymous waitress told Page 6, "I was going to feed the head of the table, but that's who Alec was talking to. So I go up to him and I say, 'I'm sorry sir, but we're going to have servers walking through the tables here in a minute.' Which is when Alec asked her, 'So when is it a good time to talk to my friends?' Huh?" Adding to that, he was very agitated and asked her, quote, "Do I have to explain it to you?" After replying that she didn't need Alec to explain a damn thing, Alec allegedly said, "Well then, step aside." Apparently, afterwards, her co-workers informed her that Alec had called her a peasant as she continued on doing her job. Now, there are also multiple clips online of Alec getting pretty aggressive with paparazzi, which is okay, and there was a time he got pretty fed up when cycling through New York. Baldwin has been known for his anger issues for quite some time now, so yeah.
Starting off at number 10, we have Christian Bale. Christian Bale is not an easy person to work with, so obviously he would be an absolute pain in the to work for. And after a leaked voice recording showed Bale screaming at his cast on a film, people finally understood how bonkers that he actually is. And his assistant Harrison Chung had such a bad experience working for him that he ended up writing a book about it. The assistant said that Bale would lecture fangirls about bothering him to the point where they started sobbing. And then another time when he received a fan letter, he told Chung the fan should be eliminated with a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain, which prevents any screaming. That was a quote, by the way, that's literally what he said. And apparently he didn't seem like he was joking either. And his stint working for the actor was so bad, he underwent 5 years of therapy for PTSD to get past the trauma that he put him through. And after hearing this, it makes a lot more sense that he regularly plays like, dark and twisted people. Might not be acting all that much. In at number 9, Kim Kardashian. After Kim fired her longtime assistant Stephanie Shepard, Stephanie spilled the tea on what we all want to know about working for Kim. At the time, she wrote on Instagram, "Letting go of a bad friend and self-care involves forgiving yourself for your impossible standards and knowing you are worth it." So yikes, clearly she is, talking about a certain somebody. One thing that Stephanie revealed is that Kim apparently takes 1,000 selfies a day. But also, who really is shocked? She also said she is so vain that she has a staff remove plants or objects if they're in the way of a mirror. While on holiday at Punta Mita in Mexico, Kim took 6,000 selfies on her 4-day trip. Kim is also apparently a slob. She would leave clothes everywhere and Stephanie would have to clean them up. Stephanie also said there would be old food in the refrigerator, the trash would be overflowing in the kitchen, and the bathrooms, no one would go in there. On the one hand, that's pretty gross, but Kim is a busy woman, so I can see why she would be kinda messy. That's definitely not the worst thing that she's done. In at number 8, Anna Wintour. After the movie The Devil Wears Prada, Anna Wintour is probably the first person that comes to mind when talking about people who treat their assistants terribly. And Wintour was exposed by her old assistant at Vogue, Lauren Weisberger. And her time there was so bad, she made a tell-all book about it, which was then turned into the movie that we all know and love, The Devil Wears Prada. The book and the movie portrayed the editor-in-chief as pretty much being the worst kind of boss, emotionally abusive, judgmental, and demanding. Anna actually wasn't too upset about the book or the movie, with her even saying in one interview that she's okay with anything that makes the fashion industry more entertaining and glamorous. Basically meaning that she was behind the film. And even though the movie portrays her as having ridiculous demands, it also portrays her as a successful and powerful woman who knows how to get what she wants. And I'm sure Anna Wintour didn't have any problems with that depiction of her. In at number 7, Jessica Simpson. Jessica is another celebrity that's a total nightmare to work for. And over the years, she's gone through tons of personal assistants, which is never a good sign. And most of the assistants hated working for her, so after they quit, they spilled the tea on how terrible she is. One source told the star that Jessica Simpson would dine and dash. as in she wouldn't pay the bill when she went to a restaurant. With one assistant adding that Jessica thought her stardom was payment enough. And even nastier, apparently Jessica wears a lot of hair extensions, but when she's like done using them, she literally just like drops them all over the place, with the assistant saying it literally looks like an animal is on the floor, and that one's pretty gross. Does she reuse those? Hopefully not. And at number 6, Courtney Love. Courtney Love is no stranger to controversy, which is clear from the scandal she has gotten into surrounding her late boyfriend Kurt Cobain. And when it comes to assistants, she is just as bad. One of her old assistants actually sued her in 2012 for not paying her, and the payment that she was supposed to make was like really weird, with her getting paid $30 an hour and a full scholarship to Yale. Apparently she was also not only an assistant, but also a forensic research aide, with her even having the opportunity to work on the Nirvana biopic. But the assistant claims that not only did Courtney not pay her, she also made her work overtime, didn't pay her or the scholarship, and even asked her to do illegal tasks like hiring a computer hacker and posing as a lawyer. Another bombshell was when the assistant said that Courtney Love acted with an improper and evil motive amounting to malice or despicable conduct. Not too sure what that's referring to, but it doesn't sound good. Halfway at number 5, Angelina Jolie. Honestly, having Angelina Jolie on this list is not a shocker, because she seems like someone who would have some pretty strange demands. One assistant of Angelina's named Anna worked at their country estate in the south of France between 2008 and 2010. And apparently she saw Angelina and Brad fight all the time, and they would spend weeks living apart from each other. She also even said that she thought that Angelina was an alcoholic, with the assistant even claiming that when Angelina got too drunk, she would lock her 6 kids into one room. Anna even sued Angelina and Brad for $88,000 for wrongful termination after she took time off for an illness. Not great, Angelina and Brad. And at number 4, Lady Gaga. A few former assistants have spoken out against their terrible time working for Lady Gaga, with one of her assistants, Jennifer O'Neill, claiming that she was an actual monster. And apparently Gaga owed her roughly $400,000 in unpaid overtime during the 13 months that she worked for her. Apparently Jennifer would do literally everything for Gaga and was on call 24 hours a day. The lawsuit states that her duties included ordering Gaga's meals, making sure her outfits were on hand, the promptness of a towel following a shower, and serving as a personal alarm clock. The assistant Gaga had before that also had a terrible experience, with the assistant claiming that Gaga slept and took showers with her because she didn't like being alone. Honestly, that's what would be the nightmare for me. Like, not the long hours, but the fact that I have to sleep and shower with my boss. Like, I just need my personal space. Too much for that. And at number 3, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins' personal assistant had a darker experience with him, and based on his public persona, it's something people would never expect. Kimberly Stokes, a former assistant, worked as Tony Robbins' live-in personal assistant, and even shared her thoughts in a BuzzFeed article about him. She recalls one time where he walked into her bathroom while she was showering and dropped his towel, exposing himself. This wasn't the only time Robbins made a pass at her either. To make matters worse, Stokes was a survivor of as a child, and Robbins knew that. Another former assistant named Kate said she considered seeing Robbins naked as a part of her job, but also saw his teachings as life transforming. And the fact that multiple people have made accusations against him proves that this is really just like a bigger issue for him altogether. And at number 2, J-Lo. This one is not a shock at all to me, because I've covered tons of times how J-Lo is one of the meanest people ever. Her demands are also the most degrading, with her insisting that her employees don't talk to her or even look at her. One of the job descriptions for her assistant was actually obtained, and it read, must have thick skin, be graceful under pressure, resourceful in foreign countries. They must be on call 24/7, be able to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. And if you're J-Lo's personal assistant, you have to know when it's J-Lo's snack time. Even though she won't actually say when she's hungry, like, you just are always expected to have food waiting and know when she wants to eat. And finally, number 1, Mariah Carey. Is anyone surprised that the biggest diva in the entire music industry is on this list? Because I am certainly not. The assistant named Liana was Mariah's assistant for 2 years, until she was wrongfully fired in 2017, which led her to sue Mariah. According to a lawsuit that she filed and a 32-page complaint, she was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for both Mariah and her former manager. It seems that Mariah's former manager, Stella Stoppler, was a huge part of the problem, and she subjected the assistant to tons of abuse. like using racial slurs when talking about her. But there were also completely disgusting things that happened there too. And allegedly Mariah's manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. Liana's lawsuit alleges that Mariah knew about the abuse and was even present for a lot of it, but still allowed it to go on. After she complained, she was fired 1 month later. And this is just so insane and nasty, but also I really don't know why that assistant would want to stay working for someone that would do that to her, right? Like, instead of suing her for wrongful termination, she should probably sue her for like workplace harassment or something instead. So that's all for the list, guys, but let me know what you're thinking about it down below. Which celebrity do you think was the worst, and who did I miss that could be in a part 2? Because I'm sure there is like so many more stories. But before I head out, I'm gonna shout out some comments for my video on Ellen getting backlash. Janine says, never trust a Kardashian Jenner endorsement. They would endorse the coronavirus for the right price. This is literally the best comment I've ever read. Thank you so much for that. Then Cat Charlie said, okay, maybe be kind should stay as a mantra, not a brand. Very, very smart. Like, just make it her little like saying, but don't be branding it. Don't be making it like what you're known for, because, you know, she's not really known for that anymore. Then Diamond Knight said, I think maybe she should have sent I'm sorry cards and gift boxes to the people who suffered working on her show and just be low-key about it. I don't really know, I just think that would have been a better idea over this quick money grab idea. Yeah, I think, you know, getting into a horrific scandal and then like asking people for your money is kind of not like a good 1-2 step situation. Probably needs to be some time in between there where people actually like you, maybe you recover some ratings, maybe you get some good press in the media,